What happens when an unstoppable force collides with an immovable object? WWE fans found out on December 2, 2025, and the answer left the entire wrestling world reeling. The Monday Night Raw after Survivor Series was supposed to be a celebration. Bron Breakker, the second-generation superstar who had been tearing through WWE's roster like a Category 5 hurricane, stood tall in the center of the ring with the World Heavyweight Championship gleaming on his shoulder. The Indianapolis crowd was electric, chanting his name, basking in the glory of a champion who represented the future of professional wrestling. At just 27 years old, Breakker had accomplished what many veterans spend their entire careers chasing. He was the man. The face of Monday Night Raw. The heir apparent to a legacy built by his uncle, the legendary Rick Steiner, and his father, the incomparable Scott Steiner. But in WWE, glory is fleeting, and peace is merely the calm before the storm. Breakker grabbed a microphone, his chest still heaving from the grueling title defense he delivered just 72 hours earlier. "Indianapolis," he roared, his voice carrying the confidence of a man who believed himself invincible. "They said I was too young. They said I was too inexperienced. They said I couldn't carry this company on my back." The crowd erupted as Breakker hoisted the championship high above his head. "But I proved every single one of them wrong. I am the World Heavyweight Champion, and there isn't a man in this locker room, there isn't a man on this planet who can take this title from me." It was at that precise moment that the arena lights cut to black. The sudden darkness sent a collective gasp through the 16,000 fans packed into Gainbridge Fieldhouse. For 3 long seconds, nothing. Complete silence. Complete darkness. Then, the sound that has haunted WWE for over 2 decades began to pulse through the speakers. That unmistakable, earth-shattering guitar riff. The pyrotechnics exploded in violent bursts of white and red. And there he was, emerging from the smoke like something out of a nightmare, something primal and furious and absolutely terrifying. Brock Lesnar had returned. The Beast Incarnate stood at the top of the entrance ramp, his massive frame silhouetted against the chaos of fire and light behind him. Paul Heyman, his longtime advocate and mouthpiece, stood beside him with that knowing smirk that promised violence and destruction. Lesnar wore his signature scowl, his cold eyes locked directly on the champion in the ring. This wasn't the playful Lesnar who occasionally cracked a smile. This wasn't the Lesnar who danced after victories. This was the Lesnar who ended careers. The Lesnar who made grown men question their life choices. The Lesnar who turned Monday Night Raw into his personal hunting ground. Breakker's expression shifted from confusion to recognition to something that might have been concern, though he quickly masked it with bravado. He dropped his microphone and raised the championship higher, daring Lesnar to come and take it. But Lesnar didn't move. Not yet. He simply stood there, bouncing on the balls of his feet, that predatory smile beginning to creep across his face. Heyman raised his microphone, and when he spoke, his voice dripped with theatrical menace. "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman, and I am the advocate for the reigning, defending, undisputed Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some fans erupted in cheers for the returning legend, while others booed, protective of their young champion. "You see that man in the ring? That boy? And let's be honest, that's what he is, a boy playing dress-up in his daddy's boots. That boy thinks he's accomplished something special." Heyman paused for effect, letting the tension build. "But what Bron Breakker doesn't understand, what none of you understand, is that there is accomplishment, and then there's dominance. There is being a champion, and then there is being Brock Lesnar. My client didn't return to WWE to shake hands and kiss babies. My client returned because he watched Survivor Series from his farm in Saskatchewan, and he was bored. Bored by the mediocrity. Bored by the false prophets claiming to be the future. So he called me, and he said just 3 words. I want it. The championship." Lesnar wanted the World Heavyweight Championship. But here's where the story takes its first unexpected turn. Because what happened next wasn't a methodical walk to the ring. It wasn't a measured approach. Lesnar exploded into a sprint, charging down that ramp with the speed and intensity of a man possessed. Breakker braced himself, dropping the title and positioning himself for the incoming collision. The two behemoths met in the center of the ring with a sound that echoed throughout the arena, a thunderous collision of flesh and bone that made even the hardened veterans watching backstage wince. For 30 seconds, they traded brutal strikes. Breakker, to his credit, didn't back down. He fired back with everything he had, landing stiff forearms that would have dropped ordinary men. But Brock Lesnar is not an ordinary man. He absorbed the punishment with that same sick smile. And then he struck. A lightning-quick double-leg takedown that showcased the amateur wrestling credentials that made him an NCAA Division I champion. Before Breakker could react, Lesnar had mounted him and was raining down savage ground-and-pound strikes that forced the referee to intervene. Security flooded the ring, 8 men in yellow shirts who were paid to protect the talent. But how do you protect someone from a force of nature? Lesnar disposed of them with contemptuous ease, tossing grown men over the top rope like they were children's toys. One security guard made the mistake of grabbing Lesnar's arm, and he paid for it with a devastating overhead belly-to-belly suplex that sent him crashing into 3 of his colleagues at ringside. Then came the moment that would define the entire angle. With security scattered and broken around him, Lesnar turned his attention back to Breakker, who was using the ropes to pull himself to his feet. Blood trickled from a cut above the champion's right eye, evidence of Lesnar's ground assault. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, it seemed like Breakker might actually stand and fight. But Lesnar had other plans. He charged again, but this time Breakker was ready. The champion sidestepped and launched Lesnar shoulder first into the steel ring post. The impact echoed sickeningly throughout the arena. Now it was Breakker's turn. Fueled by rage and adrenaline, he grabbed Lesnar and delivered a thunderous spinebuster that shook the ring. The crowd exploded, chanting "Break KER! Break KER!" Could the champion actually defeat the returning legend? Was Bron Breakker about to make a statement that would echo throughout WWE history? He lifted Lesnar for his signature move, the devastating military press power slam that had put away countless opponents. But this is where youth and inexperience became factors. As Breakker held Lesnar high above his head, Paul Heyman had quietly slid into the ring. In his hand was the World Heavyweight Championship belt. The referee was down, taken out accidentally during the earlier chaos. Heyman didn't hesitate. Crack! The championship belt connected with the back of Breakker's skull with sickening force. The champion crumpled, and Lesnar fell on top of him. For a moment, both men lay motionless in the center of the ring. The crowd's reaction was pandemonium, outrage mixed with shock mixed with disbelief. Heyman scrambled out of the ring, clutching the championship belt and screaming at Lesnar to finish it. What happened next will be replayed in video packages for years to come. Lesnar rose to his feet, that demonic smile now fully formed on his face. He dragged Breakker's limp body to the center of the ring and applied the Kimura lock, the submission hold that had broken arms and ended careers. Breakker, barely conscious, had no defense. His arm bent at an unnatural angle as Lesnar wrenched back with all his considerable strength. The champion's screams filled the arena. EMTs rushed down the ramp, along with a flood of WWE officials trying to restore order. But Lesnar wouldn't release the hold. Even as Adam Pearce, WWE's Raw general manager, climbed into the ring and physically pulled at Lesnar's arms, the Beast maintained his grip. It took 6 more officials and finally the arrival of several main roster wrestlers, including former rival Bobby Lashley, to break Lesnar's grip. When he finally released the hold, Breakker's arm hung limply at his side. The medical team immediately surrounded him, stabilizing his arm and calling for a stretcher. The question on everyone's mind: was Bron Breakker's arm broken? Was his title reign over before it truly began? As Breakker was loaded onto the stretcher, his face a mask of pain and fury, Lesnar stood on the entrance ramp. Heyman handed him the World Heavyweight Championship belt, not because Lesnar had won it, but as a statement of intent. Lesnar held it high above his head, that championship that didn't belong to him, and the message was crystal clear. This isn't over. This is just beginning. And Bron Breakker, the young lion who thought he was the king of the jungle, had just learned a brutal lesson. There are levels to this game, and Brock Lesnar operates on a different level entirely. The camera zoomed in on Lesnar's face as Raw went to commercial break. His lips moved, and those watching closely could read what he said. Mine. When Raw returned from commercial, the arena was still buzzing with chaotic energy. Michael Cole and Corey Graves sat at the commentary table, both men clearly shaken by what they'd just witnessed. Ladies and gentlemen, Cole began, his voice heavy with gravity. In my 3 decades of calling WWE programming, I have witnessed some of the most shocking moments in sports entertainment history. But what we just saw, the sheer brutality, the calculated viciousness of Brock Lesnar's assault on our World Heavyweight Champion. I don't have words. Graves interjected, his usual cocky demeanor replaced with genuine concern. Michael, I've been in that ring with Brock Lesnar. I've felt what it's like when that man decides he wants to hurt you. And what we just witnessed wasn't a message. It wasn't a challenge. That was Brock Lesnar declaring war. That was a statement that says, I don't care about your feel-good story. I don't care about your potential. I don't care about your legacy. I want that title, and I will destroy anyone and anything in my path to get it.
But the night wasn't over.
Not by a long shot. Backstage, the medical area was in complete chaos. Cameras caught glimpses of Bron Breakker being examined by WWE's medical staff, his arm in a temporary sling, his face a mixture of pain and barely contained rage. Adam Pearce stood nearby, his phone pressed to his ear, clearly in heated discussion with someone, likely WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. The question everyone wanted answered: what would WWE do?
How would they respond to this level of violence? Would there be consequences for Lesnar? Would Breakker be stripped of the title due to injury?
Then came the second major twist of the evening. As Raw's third hour began, Pearce made his way to the ring, microphone in hand and frustration written across his face. "I'm going to keep this brief because I'm as pissed off as all of you are right now," he announced, his voice tight with controlled anger. What Brock Lesnar did tonight was reprehensible.
It was unprovoked.
It was violent beyond measure. And let me be clear, there will be consequences. The crowd erupted in approval, eager for justice. But Pearce's next words stunned everyone into silence. "However, I've just gotten off the phone with WWE's board of directors and with our champion, Bron Breakker. And despite what happened tonight, despite the injury he suffered, Breakker has made one thing absolutely clear. He refuses to surrender the World Heavyweight Championship.
He refuses to back down from Brock Lesnar.
And against the advice of our medical team, against my own better judgment, Bron Breakker has demanded that he face Brock Lesnar in a World Heavyweight Championship match."
The arena exploded. This was madness.
This was exactly what the fans wanted. But at what cost? Pearce continued. "The board has agreed to sanction this match, but on one condition. Given the severity of tonight's attack, given the stakes involved, this match will not happen on some random episode of Raw. This match will happen at our next premium live event. In 3 weeks, at WWE Saturday Night's main event, it will be Bron Breakker defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Brock Lesnar. But gentlemen, let me make one thing perfectly clear. If either of you lay a hand on each other before that match, if there is any physical contact whatsoever, the offending party will be suspended indefinitely, and Brock, you will lose your championship opportunity." The stipulation made sense from a business perspective. WWE wanted to ensure their massive main event would actually happen.
But it also presented an intriguing dynamic.
For 3 weeks, Lesnar and Breakker would have to coexist on the same show without touching each other.
The mental warfare that could unfold in that time was limitless.
As if on cue, Paul Heyman appeared on the stage, that championship belt still in his possession. "Mr. Pearce, if I may," he asked, his voice dripping with false politeness. "My client, the Beast incarnate Brock Lesnar, accepts your terms. 3 weeks. Saturday night's main event. We will be there to collect what rightfully belongs to us. But let me ask you something, Adam. Let me ask everyone watching this travesty of a television program something. You saw what Brock Lesnar did to Bron Breakker in just 5 minutes tonight. 5 minutes, and your champion was broken, battered, and beaten. What exactly do you think is going to happen when my client has an entire match, a sanctioned match with no disqualifications, no countouts, and most importantly, no one to save poor little Bron Breakker, to finish what he started tonight?" Heyman let the question hang in the air like a dark prophecy. "In 3 weeks, the Beast incarnate will feast. And when the carnage is over, when the destruction is complete, when Brock Lesnar stands over the broken body of your former champion, you will all realize what I've known for 20 years. There is no one on Brock Lesnar's level.
There never has been. And there never will be."
The segment closed with a split-screen image. On one side, Paul Heyman holding the World Heavyweight Championship with that sinister smile. On the other, Bron Breakker in the medical area, being helped to his feet by trainers. His eyes burning with determination despite the pain etched across his face.
2 men. 1 championship.
3 weeks. The collision course was set, and everyone knew that when these two forces finally met in a sanctioned match, someone's career might never be the same.
Can you hear it?
That low rumble of impending violence? That electric tension that makes the air itself feel dangerous? The 3 weeks between Brock Lesnar's vicious assault and the scheduled Saturday night's main event showdown became the most captivating period in recent WWE history. Not because of what happened in the ring, but because of what didn't happen. The no-contact clause that Adam Pearce had instituted transformed Raw into a psychological pressure cooker where every word spoken, every glance exchanged, and every second of screen time felt like it could explode into chaos at any moment. Week 1 began with an announcement that sent shockwaves through the WWE universe. Bron Breakker's arm wasn't broken. The Kimura lock that Lesnar had applied with such vicious intent had severely hyperextended the shoulder and caused significant ligament strain, but nothing was torn or fractured. The champion would be cleared to compete at Saturday night's main event, but he'd be competing at less than 100%. Any other wrestler might have seen this as a death sentence. Facing Brock Lesnar at full health was dangerous enough, but facing him injured?
That was career suicide. But Bron Breakker wasn't any other wrestler.
The opening segment of that first Raw featured Breakker marching to the ring, his arm heavily taped from shoulder to elbow, the World Heavyweight Championship secured around his waist with a defiance that bordered on arrogance. The crowd in Newark, New Jersey gave him a standing ovation, but Breakker wasn't there for their approval. He grabbed a microphone, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a man who had something to prove, not to the fans, not to the locker room, but to himself. Brock Lesnar, I know you're watching this backstage with your little mouthpiece Paul Heyman, Breakker began, pacing the ring like a caged animal.
You thought you broke me last week. You thought that attack would make me scared, would make me reconsider, would make me realize I'm in over my head. But let me tell you what you actually did. You pissed me off. You took this from a business match for a championship to something personal. Something that can't be taken back. The crowd roared their approval, but Breakker wasn't finished. See, my entire life, I've heard stories about you. The legend. The beast. The conqueror. My family, my coaches, everyone in the industry told me that if I ever had to face Brock Lesnar, I should be honored just to share the ring with him. Well, you know what? I don't feel honored. I feel angry.
I'm angry that you think you can come back after months away and just take what I've spent the last year building. I'm angry that you think I'm just another name on your resume. I'm angry that you looked at me and saw someone you could bully, someone you could intimidate, someone who would roll over and play dead. But most of all, Brock, I'm angry at myself for not seeing it coming.
For letting my guard down.
For giving you the chance to strike first. The champion paused, his jaw clenched, that injured arm hanging protectively at his side. But that mistake, that one moment of weakness?
It's not happening again.
Saturday night's main event. When we're standing across from each other in a sanctioned match, you're going to learn what I've been trying to tell everyone since I won this championship. I am not here to be part of someone else's legacy.
I'm here to build my own.
And if I have to go through you to cement my place in history, if I have to defeat the so-called beast incarnate to prove I belong at the top of this industry, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. Then came the response that made everyone in the arena hold their breath. The lights cut. That music hit. And Brock Lesnar emerged once again, Paul Heyman at his side, both men walking with the casual confidence of people who held all the power. They stopped at the top of the ramp, making no move to approach the ring. After all, the no-contact clause meant that even stepping too close could result in suspension. Heyman raised his microphone, and when he spoke, his tone had shifted from theatrical to deadly serious. Bron, Heyman began, shaking his head with what almost seemed like genuine pity. That's a wonderful speech. Very inspiring. Very motivational. I'm sure it'll make a great video package when WWE produces your career retrospective 15 years from now.
But let's talk about reality.
Let's talk about what actually happens when that bell rings at Saturday night's main event. Because words don't mean anything in that ring.
Passion doesn't mean anything. Heart doesn't mean anything.
The only thing that matters is survival. And son, you are not built to survive Brock Lesnar. Lesnar hadn't moved, hadn't changed his expression, but his eyes never left Breakker. Heyman continued, You want to talk about building legacies? My client has conquered The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak.
He's made John Cena bleed.
He's broken arms, shattered dreams, and ended careers. He's held every major championship in this company, some of them multiple times. So when you stand there with your taped-up arm and your borrowed confidence and you tell the world you're going to defeat Brock Lesnar, do you know what you sound like? You sound like every other young, dumb, overconfident fool who thought they could be the one to slay the beast. The crowd was split, half booing Heyman's brutal honesty, half acknowledging the truth in his words. But here's what makes you different, Bron, Heyman said, his voice dropping to something almost resembling respect. Here's why my client actually respects you, even as he plans your destruction.
You didn't back down.
When you had every excuse to vacate that championship, when you could have walked away and no one would have blamed you, you chose to fight.
And that takes courage.
That takes heart. That takes exactly the kind of warrior spirit that makes for a compelling victim. Because that's what you're going to be at Saturday night's main event. Bron. You're going to be a victim. A cautionary tale. A reminder to everyone watching that heart isn't enough. Courage isn't enough. Even talent isn't enough. The only thing that matters in that ring is being Brock Lesnar. And kid, you're not him. You never will be. The stare down that followed. Lesnar on the ramp, Breakker in the ring, 50 feet of distance between them but a chasm of intention and violence waiting to be unleashed, lasted for nearly a full minute. Neither man blinked. Neither man moved. The crowd was deafening, chanting back and forth. Break Ker. Lesnar. Break Ker. Lesnar. When Raw finally cut to commercial, that image of two warriors preparing for battle was seared into everyone's mind. Week 2 brought an unexpected development. During a backstage interview, Bron Breakker revealed something that shocked everyone. He'd requested additional medical evaluations of his injured shoulder, and the results were worse than initially reported. The ligament strain was severe enough that doctors had recommended he not compete for at least 6 weeks. WWE officials, upon hearing this news, attempted to postpone the Saturday night's main event match to Royal Rumble in January, giving Breakker time to properly heal. But Breakker refused. Absolutely refused. I don't care what the doctors say, Breakker told interviewer Kathy Kelly, his intensity burning through the screen. I don't care about medical recommendations. I don't care about playing it safe. If I postpone this match, if I show even a hint of backing down, then Brock Lesnar wins. He wins without even stepping into the ring. He gets in my head, he makes me doubt myself, and that's exactly what he wants. So no. Hell no. Saturday night's main event happens as scheduled, and either I walk out as World Heavyweight Champion, or I don't walk out at all. The commitment was admirable. The commitment was insane. And it played perfectly into the narrative that Paul Heyman constructed during Lesnar's segment later that night. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing a tragedy in real time, Heyman proclaimed from the ring, his voice carrying the cadence of a eulogy. Bron Breakker is so consumed by pride, so blinded by ego, that he's willing to sacrifice his health, his career, maybe even his ability to use his arm properly for the rest of his life, all because he can't admit that he's outmatched. This isn't courage. This is stupidity. This is a young man making the worst decision of his life, and in 6 days, when my client is standing over his broken body with the World Heavyweight Championship, I hope Bron Breakker understands that this was a choice. His choice. And he'll have to live with the consequences. Then came the mind games. Oh, the mind games. Week 3 saw Brock Lesnar demonstrate exactly why he's considered one of the most intelligent workers in WWE history. During a contract signing segment, held with Lesnar on one side of the ring and Breakker on the other, Adam Pearce standing as a human buffer between them, Lesnar did something unprecedented. He spoke. Not Heyman. Lesnar himself grabbed the microphone and addressed Breakker directly for the first time since returning. Kid, Lesnar said, his voice gravel and menace, I've been in this business for over 20 years. I've seen guys like you come and go. Talented. Hungry. Convinced they are destined for greatness. And you know what happens to most of them? They fade. They become trivia questions. Remember that guy who had potential? That's their legacy. He paused, letting the words sink in. But you? You might actually be different. You might actually have what it takes to be a real champion. To be a legend. To be remembered. And that's why I'm going to hurt you. Not because I hate you. Not because you've done anything to me. But because if you can survive what I'm going to do to you Saturday night, if you can endure the kind of punishment I'm going to inflict and still stand at the end, then you'll have earned the right to call yourself a champion. And if you can't? Lesnar smiled that cold, dead smile. Then you never deserved it in the first place. The words hit Breakker like physical blows. The champion's face cycled through emotions, anger, determination, and something that might have been doubt, though he quickly masked it. When it was his turn to speak, Breakker's response was simple and direct. Brock, you can break my arm. You can break my back. You can break every bone in my body. But you will not break my spirit, and you will not take this championship without the fight of your life. Because unlike all those other guys you're talking about, unlike all those people who faded away, I'm not here to be a moment. I'm here to be an era. And your era? It ends Saturday night. Both men signed the contract. Both men refused to break eye contact. And when Raw went off the air, the final shot was of Lesnar and Breakker's signatures on that contract, black ink that might as well have been blood, given what everyone knew was coming. The go-home show before Saturday night's main event featured one final confrontation, and it was the closest the two came to violating the no-contact clause. During the closing segment of Raw, with the entire locker room surrounding the ring to prevent any altercation, Brock Lesnar and Bron Breakker stood face-to-face, separated only by Adam Pearce. The tension was suffocating. Fans in Philadelphia stood on their feet, waiting for someone to make a move, to throw a punch, to ignite the powder keg.
But neither man flinched. Neither man backed down.
They simply stood there, inches apart, the World Heavyweight Championship held between them by Pearce, breathing the same air and silently promising violence.
And then Lesnar did something that changed everything. He laughed.
Not a full laugh, just a small, quiet chuckle that only Breakker and those closest could hear. And he whispered something the cameras didn't pick up, something that made Breakker's face go white with rage. To this day, Breakker has never revealed what Lesnar said to him in that moment. But whatever it was, it had the desired effect. The champion lunged forward, and if not for the combined efforts of Adam Pearce, multiple referees, and half the roster, the match would have happened right there on Raw. As officials pulled Breakker away, Lesnar simply smiled and mouthed three words that the cameras did catch: Saturday.
You're
mine. The mathematical equation was complete.
Two competitors at the peak of their powers. One championship. One injured shoulder. Zero mercy.
The collision was inevitable. The violence was guaranteed. And in just 48 hours, the world would find out if Bron Breakker was truly ready to face the beast, or if he was just another name on Brock Lesnar's list of victims. What makes a classic wrestling match?
Is it technical perfection? Is it storytelling?
Is it raw, unbridled violence that makes you question whether what you're watching is real or choreographed? Saturday night's main event, broadcasting live from Madison Square Garden in New York City, the most famous arena in the world, promised to answer that question. The venue itself added layers of gravitas to the event. This was the building where legends were made. Where Bruno Sammartino defended his WWF championship for years. Where Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock had their defining moments.
Where history wasn't just made but immortalized.
And on this December night, with 17,000 screaming fans packed into every corner of the garden, history was about to be written in blood, sweat, and championship gold. The build to the main event was masterful. WWE stacked the undercard with quality matches designed to keep the crowd hot and invested, but everyone knew why they were really there. Everyone was waiting for the moment when Brock Lesnar and Bron Breakker would finally be allowed to destroy each other legally, with the World Heavyweight Championship hanging in the balance. When the moment finally arrived, when the penultimate match ended and the ring crew began preparing for the main event, the atmosphere in Madison Square Garden became electric with anticipation. Michael Cole and Corey Graves, positioned at ringside, had spent the entire evening building the drama, and now, as the main event approached, their voices carried the weight of history about to unfold. "Ladies and gentlemen," Cole announced, his voice trembling with genuine excitement, "we have reached the moment that the entire WWE universe has been waiting for. For 3 weeks, we have watched Brock Lesnar and Bron Breakker circle each other like apex predators preparing for a hunt.
We've heard the words. We've seen the intensity. But words and stares can only carry us so far.
Now, in just moments, these two men will finally be allowed to do what they've been dreaming about for 21 days, hurt each other. And one of them will leave Madison Square Garden as the World Heavyweight Champion." Graves added his perspective, the former wrestler in him understanding the magnitude of what was about to occur.
"Michael, I've been in title matches.
I've competed in this very ring. But I have never, in my entire career, felt the kind of tension we're feeling right now. Bron Breakker is wrestling with a shoulder that's held together by tape and willpower. Brock Lesnar is a calculating predator who has made a career out of identifying weakness and exploiting it without mercy.
This isn't just a championship match. This is a survival match.
And I genuinely don't know if Bron Breakker survives the night."
The entrance music hit. First, the champion.
Bron Breakker emerged from the entranceway, and the reception was thunderous. The Garden crowd, known for their sophisticated wrestling knowledge and their appreciation for true toughness, gave Breakker the respect he'd earned. He walked to the ring with purpose, the World Heavyweight Championship around his waist, his injured shoulder heavily taped but his eyes burning with determination.
There was no showboating. No grandstanding.
Just a man walking into what might be the most important and dangerous 20 minutes of his life. As Breakker stood in the ring, removing the championship and holding it high above his head one final time before handing it to the referee, the camera zoomed in on his face.
This was a man who understood the stakes, who knew that in moments, he would be tested like never before, who accepted that he might leave this ring on a stretcher, but who was determined that if he did, he'd leave as champion. Then came the conqueror. The lights went dark. The music hit. And Madison Square Garden exploded with a mix of awe and bloodlust. Brock Lesnar emerged with Paul Heyman at his side, and if Breakker had walked to the ring like a man going to war, Lesnar walked like war itself. He bounced on his feet at the top of the ramp, that primal energy radiating from every movement. He wore his signature fight attire, black trunks, black boots, and a presence that suggested violence was not just possible but inevitable. Heyman, in a moment of theatrical brilliance, conducted the crowd like a maestro, encouraging their cheers and their boos, feeding off their energy. When they reached the ring, Lesnar circled it slowly, never taking his eyes off Breakker, who stood in the center, refusing to back away from the challenge. Finally, Lesnar rolled under the bottom rope and immediately shot to his feet, chest to chest with the champion. The referee inserted himself between them, physically pushing them apart as he explained the rules. Standard wrestling match, no disqualification implied by their previous violence, but pinfalls and submissions would determine the winner. The bell rang, and for 3 full seconds, neither man moved. They simply stood there, staring, the crowd's noise reaching a deafening crescendo, waiting to see who would make the first move. It was Lesnar who broke the tension, that smile creeping across his face as he backed up and started circling Breakker. The champion mirrored his movement, and for a moment, it looked almost like a dance. 2 fighters testing range, testing timing, looking for the opening that would begin the violence. Breakker struck first. A lightning-quick strike that connected with Lesnar's jaw and actually snapped the beast's head to the side. The crowd gasped, not because the strike was devastating, but because Breakker had the audacity to actually hit Brock Lesnar first. Lesnar's head slowly rotated back to face Breakker, and the smile was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. The fight was on. What followed was 7 minutes of the most intense back-and-forth action Madison Square Garden had witnessed in years. Lesnar went for his amateur wrestling credentials, attempting multiple takedowns that Breakker defended with impressive technique. When Lesnar did manage to complete a takedown, Breakker scrambled immediately, refusing to let the former UFC heavyweight champion establish ground control. They traded bombs, stiff forearms, brutal clotheslines, strikes that echoed throughout the arena and made even the fans in the upper deck wince. The tide began to turn when Lesnar, showing his ring IQ, started targeting the injured shoulder. A deliberate kick to the joint while Breakker was against the ropes. A targeted shoulder tackle that sent Breakker crashing into the ring post. Each attack was calculated, designed not just to hurt but to systematically break down the champion's defense. Breakker tried to fight through it, landing his signature power slam at the 8-minute mark and getting a near fall that made every fan in the building believe for a moment that the impossible might happen. But the injured shoulder betrayed him. As Breakker went for a second power slam, his shoulder gave out, and Lesnar crashed to the mat in an uncontrolled fall that allowed him to roll away. The champion clutched his shoulder, his face showing pain for the first time in the match, and Lesnar saw it. Like a shark sensing blood in the water, Lesnar's approach changed from methodical to vicious. A German suplex. Then another. And another. 3 consecutive German suplexes, each one spiking Breakker on the back of his head and neck, each one bringing the crowd to their feet in horror and excitement. Lesnar didn't go for the pin. Instead, he dragged Breakker to the center of the ring and applied the Kimura lock, the same submission hold that had injured the shoulder 3 weeks earlier. This was the climax. This was the moment of truth. Breakker's screams filled the arena. His face contorted in agony as Lesnar wrenched back on the arm, applying pressure to the damaged shoulder that had to be excruciating. The referee positioned himself in front of Breakker's face, asking the question every fan knew was coming. Do you quit? The camera zoomed in on Breakker's face, capturing the internal war happening in real time. The pain was obvious. The damage was real. One word, just one word, and it would all be over. But Bron Breakker didn't become world heavyweight champion by being weak. He didn't earn the respect of the locker room and the fans by taking the easy way out. Through gritted teeth, his arm literally being torn from its socket, he snarled one word. "No."